At 3:58 on the afternoon of Tuesday, December 2nd, 2014, my mom called and told me that my uncle, Joseph Hanson, passed away. He was 97. Earlier that same morning, I read that this year marks the 82nd lighting of the Rockefeller Center Christmas Tree. My Uncle Joe was here before the tree. I lost both my grandfathers to cancer. My maternal grandfather got taken down before I started kindergarten in 1970, and my paternal grandfather lost his second war 5 years later. I still remember both men, but unfortunately for all parties involved, we didn't have the opportunity to collaborate. My relationships with my grandfathers were devoid of things including indoor-outdoor adventures, discussions highlighted with wisdom-loaded advice, and resolving problems parallel to putting together a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. With these things in mind, let us shift back to Joseph Hanson, my uncle/grandfather. There are so many experiences I could share, but I am going to provide a brief overview of the ones I thought about after my mom's telephone call. After my Uncle Joe retired, he and my Aunt Clara, my maternal grandmother's youngest sister, moved to Hampton Bays, New York. At the time, I was a teenager, and when my mom and I would visit them, Uncle Joe and I would sometimes go fluke fishing. Have you ever seen a fluke? They're kind of kooky looking, with both of their eyes on the left side of their bodies. But I didn't care what they looked like, or whether or not I liked the way they tasted. I just loved being out on the water, spending time with Uncle Joe in his fishing boat. Uncle Joe was also an extraordinary photographer. I was enrolled in a black and white photography class during my first year at the School of Visual Arts. I still remember the two of us in my mom's half bath going over putting the film in the developing tank. Then we emerged from the bathroom, the master and his eager apprentice, and took turns taking photographs of our family using my Canon AE1 SLR manual focus camera. 28 years have passed, and my mom still has some of these photos arranged carefully on furniture in the living room of her home. I have the one I took of Uncle Joe and the portraits he made of my mom and my paternal grandmother. After my Aunt Clara passed away, Uncle Joe moved to Hull, Massachusetts. My mom and I stayed with him several times, but it was our visit in 1997 that, unknown to me, would renovate my psyche and inspire my magnum opus, 6 Million. Uncle Joe was an exceptional storyteller. He was very articulate and could recount his history of life experiences with utmost accuracy. It was largely through him that I learned about my mom's side of the family. But there was one story that he never shared, the story about his experience at Dachau concentration camp. During World War II, he was a member of the 163rd Signal Photo Company. In April 1945, while he was serving in France, he received orders to go into Dachau concentration camp near Munich to make a photographic record of the place. There, he took general, almost innocuous photos of the camp. As well, he documented horrific scenes of death and starvation, capturing images of sick men and women prisoners clad only in rags. When the war ended, he returned home to New York and went to work for IBM. The company sent him to college, and he retired as a photographic engineer. Until shortly before my visit, he kept his Dachau pictures locked in a closet. He told me I didn't want to think about it, even though I couldn't get the sights and smells out of my mind. He told me how after entering Dachau's gates, he moved from building to building, almost frantically, taking pictures and collecting papers. Then he handed me the identification card for a Polish civil worker. It contained her photo, some personal information, and 2 fingerprints. So simple, yet so profound. I had a deep emotional response to the worn document as I realized it might well be the only artifact of a human life cut short at Dachau, a record that would have been lost if my uncle had not retrieved it from the debris of the concentration camp. The Polish worker's ID is what inspired me to represent each of the 6 million killed with a single inked fingerprint. The last time I saw my Uncle Joe was during the summer of 2004, 1 year before I began working on my plans for 6 million. In May 2009, Joe Crankshaw interviewed my Uncle Joe. He titled his piece, World War II Combat Photographer Working to Make Sure What He Saw Never Happens Again, and it was published in the newspaper T.C. Palm. I need to share the following excerpt. There was a man there claiming the Holocaust never happened, that it was all Jewish propaganda, said Hanson, a devout Catholic. I was enraged. I knew it had happened. I had seen it. I got out my pictures and started showing them to everyone. People have to know it happened and make sure it never happens again. Over the years, Hanson has taken part in national education programs. Plus, he conducts his own personal information program at schools, synagogues, anywhere people will look at his pictures and hear him talk. I have to do it, he said, but I worry about who will do it when I am gone. 17 years have passed since I held the Polish worker's ID card in my hands. 17 years have passed since I experienced the photographs my Uncle Joe captured at Dachau concentration camp in April 1945. 17 years have passed since I was a witness to what he saw with his eyes. I hail my Uncle Joe after every fingerprint, every stamp of remembrance. What is more, I will do everything I can to educate myself and others so that together we can prevent crimes against humanity.